This week on Pep Talk, and I could just keep talking to you forever because I think you've got so much knowledge.
So I'm Anna, I'm the founder of Fiils. We aim to reduce single-use waste in the bathroom, and we offer a range of refillable basics, so shampoo, conditioner, body wash and hand wash. With my first business, it was a great product, but it didn't really have a point of difference. And when you're competing against, these huge makeup brands, it was just virtually impossible to get any visibility.
Thank you so much for being very honest about your early days. I think a lot of people listening will get a lot from that. If you went back and did it again, what would you do differently?
Do you know what? I don't think I would have done anything differently.
Sometimes the mistakes you've made have brought you to this brilliant place you are today. The bad luck is good luck.
You really do need to make those mistakes on running a business.
What an amazing story, Anna.
Oh, that's so nice. You're going to make me cry.
Our mission is to help 10 million people start and grow a business for free. We want nothing from you. In Pep Talk, we interview industry-leading experts from around the world who share actionable know-how and life lessons. That's why we're excited to partner with GoDaddy to power up Pep Talk. I've been using GoDaddy for years and would promote them on this podcast even if they didn't sponsor us. You can use their free website builder and start your online business at no cost, and even get help these days with naming your business. For 40% off GoDaddy tools, click the link in the podcast notes below and use the code GDXPepTalk. Welcome, Anna, to the podcast. Perhaps we could start off by you kindly introducing who you are and what your business does to our audience.
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm Anna. I am the founder of Fiils. So Fiils is a beauty and personal care brand that we aim to reduce single-use waste in the bathroom and our beauty and personal care routines. And we offer a range of refillable basics at the moment, so shampoo, conditioner, body wash and hand wash in refillable and reusable packaging. 99% natural formulas. My background, I have been in the beauty industry for over 15 years. And I've worked for some of the biggest D2C brands, predominantly in makeup. So I started my career as a makeup artist, then went into more global roles within the companies that I worked for before starting a business. And I've been on this entrepreneurial journey for around 3 years now. Yeah, and I've got a lot more wrinkles because of it.
So take us back to 3 years ago. You're working, I was reading, at another cosmetic company, and you said, yes, right, I want to build this business. How did you quit? How did it happen? What was the process?
So I always wanted to start a business, and I actually set up a vegan lipstick brand first prior to setting up Fiils. And it was around 2018. I always knew I wanted to start a business, and behind the scenes, I was working on this business idea. We'd built a platform for it on Instagram. We had around 20,000 followers. And the idea was to convert that platform into a brand eventually. So I'd started to speak to, I don't know how I started to kind of get involved in the product development side of things. I think I just decided, you know what, now's the time. If I'm going to do this, I need to do it now. I was 33 at the time. And I found a supplier, started speaking to some suppliers, wanted to create this vegan lipstick brand. And basically set about kind of creating that whilst I was at the brand I was working at. So the idea for this vegan lipstick brand was, vegan lipsticks. It was actually inspired by the kind of disco era, complete polar opposite to what I'm doing now with Fiils. And it was a beautiful, beautiful brand. I worked with the leading manufacturer to create the product, and we launched in September 2018. And at that time, the makeup boom in the industry and kind of the skincare boom was kind of just beginning in the beauty industry, but the makeup boom, it had become so saturated. There was this rise of Instagram influencers all launching brands. Every single celebrity, had a brand at that point. And I think I really underestimated how much it would take to actually market a brand. I think launching a brand, I think if you've got that creative part of your personality and, you know, you enjoy creating things, I think creating a brand is actually quite easy. The hardest bit is what you do afterwards. And, you know, whilst I'd had a ton of experience in product development with the brand that I'd worked for, you know, I had experience in trend forecasting, you know, really kind of scoping out what was coming next in the beauty industry. I knew how to sell a product. When it came to launching a product and selling it online, I literally had no clue. I really underestimated the amount of money that I'd need for marketing, underestimated the competition. So it was a really great launch. We had some great press around it. The formula itself was absolutely amazing. The branding was beautiful. But long and short of it was, I basically didn't have enough money to keep the brand running. So I invested about 50 grand probably more than that, into that company. And within about 6 to 8 months, I'd completely run out of money. I found it very difficult to raise money for that. I think it wasn't necessarily unique. It was a great product. It was vegan. But it didn't really have a point of difference. And when you're competing against, you know, these huge makeup brands, it was just virtually impossible to get any visibility. So I kind of kept that running for probably around a year. And do you know, that was a really tough journey, because I kind of had this, you know, I'd left a really incredible global role with a great salary to launch in this company. And, you know, I think as an entrepreneur, when you launch a business, I think you're always like super optimistic, right? You're like, I love this product, everyone else is going to love it, everyone's going to buy it. And that's really just not the case. There's so much more that goes into launching a product, running a business. And I just wasn't prepared for that at all. So, it was kind of like a year I kept that going, and it was literally like pushing, you know, it was a real uphill struggle. And in 2019, I ended up joining at the end of that year the NatWest Accelerator, which was a real turning point for me. So I actually went in, and at the time, the idea for Fiils was kind of bubbling up in the background. And I think I did a lot of soul searching that year. Like, you know, I'd started to kind of like get into the kind of, do you know what, I'm a very quick learner, me. So if I've done something wrong, you know, I really do reflect on it, and I think, right, okay, what went wrong there? How can I, you know, turn this around? You know, what are the learnings from this? I'm not the sort of person that is knocked back and doesn't get back up. You know, I was like, right, okay, what's the next step? I didn't want to go back into a corporate role. I knew that I was on this business journey, that I had to move forward with it. And I'd kind of had the idea for Fiils because behind the scenes, like I live a fairly low impact lifestyle. So I've always shopped in zero waste stores. Before they were a thing, I've always shopped on eBay, Depop, you know, bought a lot of my stuff secondhand. And I was always really mindful of the level of consumption within the beauty industry. I mean, it's absolutely shocking when you work for these brands, and the beauty industry is heavily led by trend, like the fashion industry. So you have a trend, it's in 1 minute, it's out the next. And these brands put, you know, thousands, like hundreds of thousands of pounds behind these collections. They launch them. And then, you know, I mean, in this collection, you know, for instance, there might be like a black lipstick, you know, whatever. I mean, who's going to wear black lipstick, you know, and where does that product go? You know, it's created, it usually goes to landfill, and or it's sold off. So, you know, when you work in the beauty industry, there's many ugly sides to the beauty industry, and that's like a big part of it. And it was just a bit shocking, like how there was a lot of, like, the whole kind of plastic problem had really started to come to the forefront when I was kind of thinking about this idea. But nobody seemed to be talking about the beauty industry. It was all about, you know, the food and beverage industry. They were really coming under fire. You know, the fashion industry had started to come under fire for its contribution to global warming. But the beauty industry kind of like slipped under the net a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, guys, you know, it's one of the worst industries for waste, right? And, you know, even, you know, the statistics for like bathroom waste, a lot of people don't recycle bathroom waste because it's inconvenient. So, yeah, the idea for Fiils, it was kind of quite obvious, to be honest. And I was just so fed up myself of like throwing out plastic bottles consistently from my bathroom. And really, you know, obviously wanted to solve that problem. And I think part of it as well, when I was actually in development for the first brand, I really was trying to make the packaging as sustainable as possible. And there was virtually no options for sustainable packaging. I mean, I'll be honest, like 3 years later, there's still not. You know, there's still a long way to go. And I knew that if I wanted to kind of launch a brand, it would have to be a brand that contributed to the change and not to the problem. So anyway, long story long, I ended up pivoting whilst I was in the NatWest Accelerator, and that kind of gave me the confidence to really put a deck together and, you know, gave me the know-how to put a pitch deck together. So I remember saying to my mentor, look, I've got this other idea. I just know, you know, my first brand, I said, it's just dead in the water. I don't feel as passionate about that idea. I feel like I really want to do something that is meaningful to kind of impact my industry in a positive way. And I put a deck together. I designed the product myself. I got some samples made. I mean, the branding was absolutely awful. But I went out and I basically raised some money from a group of angel investors, around 75,000, to basically bring it to market off that deck within like 2 months.
Amazing.
And yeah, so the kind of early product for Fiils, well, we actually launched under a different name. So it was very much like an MVP. And I just wanted to kind of see, you know, if customers would buy into this concept of refillable beauty. And yeah, we launched, I think it was late 2019, early 2020, just at the start of COVID. And yeah, just basically things, you know, really took off. You know, the pandemic affected us in positive, good and bad ways, but we really saw, you know, a huge demand for the product. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
What an amazing story, Anna. I just want to say up front, thank you so much for being very honest about your early days and the process you went through. I think a lot of people listening will really get a lot from that. And I think we all talk about how it's good to fail, but no one actually likes to talk about their failures. And the fact that you're being so open about how much money you put in and your you know, 1 year of pushing it to keep it going. There's a couple of really important things that you said there that I think, you know, people listening, I don't want them to miss. And what the thing I really took from it, from your amazing, honest insight, is purpose. Right? You didn't feel the same love for 100%. That particular product that you do today for Fiils, and how much that can drive you and of course make the business work. And so I think that's really important for people listening out there. Perhaps they see a market gap, because you were in research before, right? You saw a market gap, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work because you're not personally passionate about it. And I would also just like to say, for the listeners listening, you know, you're quite humble. You are actually you are the pioneer in this business. You're one of the first reusable, refillable personal care models direct to door in the UK. You have pioneered that market. You are the market leader, and that has come in 2 years. And so, you know, there's plenty of time to change direction for people that are running a business they don't love. And there's plenty of time to recoup the loss that you made in that valuable failure, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was really painful because, you know, I'd spent like 15 years in the makeup industry, and I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't even, how did this not work? You know, I've got so much experience in the makeup industry, you know, and the product itself was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was literally, I went to the top makeup manufacturer in Italy. It was stunning. I mean, literally, I'm still like, I've stockpiled a ton of it. I'm still wearing it to this day.
Love that. I love that, by the way. I think that's another thing about failure. I did a comic book business and lost $1 million in it, but I still have that comic book on my desk and I enjoy reading it, and I'm very proud of the failure. That's the interesting thing about trying something, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true. Like I'll be honest, I really don't regret a single moment of that journey. Obviously, if I had a crystal ball, I mean, there's so many things that you think, oh God, if I did that a bit differently. But to be honest, it 100% led me to where I am now. It really, really did. And, you know, had I have not had that business, I wouldn't have kind of progressed to get on the NatWest Accelerator. That was kind of, I'll be honest, the NatWest Accelerator was literally where things really started to happen for me. You know, it was surrounded by other entrepreneurs that were going through the same journey. It was an amazing, amazing community. My mentor was amazing. She was like this Scouse bird from Liverpool. It was just like amazing, like, you know, really kind of tough, but, you know, kind of knew exactly what, you know, how to guide me and how to kind of coach me and get the best out of me. And yeah, that was kind of where it happened. And I wouldn't have kind of got to that stage had I have not started the first business. So it's very much a journey. And, you know, I think, don't get me wrong, I'm still on that journey now. You know, we're still a very early stage business. You know, that comes with, you know, an entirely new set of problems. You know, we've raised money, we're selling a product, but yeah, I am proud in a way of the journey that I've had, and I'm glad that it's not been straightforward. You know,
no,
because
that's exactly right. I think that's another insight for people listening who are thinking of starting a business. Sometimes it is about the journey. The way I look at what you're explaining is, you know, you've invested 50,000 in an education.
Yeah, true.
You know, that 1 year was an education. Like, you've come from institutional structures that perhaps gave you enough knowledge that you were useful inside those structures, but weren't necessarily ready to start your own business. That first year is just training.
Yeah, it is.
You happen to invest.
And do you know what? It's so true.
In a product. Yeah, and I think a lot of people should do that. You know, like, you never regret what you only regret what you don't do in life, right? You never regret that experience, because you also now, your present business is stronger because of it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I just want to take a moment to thank Taylor Brands for sponsoring this podcast. Have you ever been told you can easily start a business that will make money while you sleep, only to realize it takes a ton of work to get a business started? Taylor Brands makes starting a business easy. With its AI-powered platform, you can get your business a logo, social media designs, printed merchandise, and so much more, all in just a few clicks. That's why I love Taylor Brands. Whatever your idea is, you can make it look legit in a day and actually start selling through the Taylor Brands platform. For 40% off your first order, check out the links in the podcast notes below and use the code PEP. Now, let's get back to the podcast. The other thing I would just like to highlight, by the way, a lot of people are quite negative about accelerators today. And I love it when I hear that they've helped someone. And I think a lot of the time, these corporate accelerators in particular get a bad rap. And for anyone listening, you know, I think with accelerators, and I'd love your opinion on this too, of course, is that you've got to go in there with knowing what you want from these accelerators. And don't expect them to run your business for you, and don't expect them to make your business work. But there are brilliant mentors in programs like the NatWest Accelerators you just described, who can literally help you realize, hey, that business you had before that's not working, let it go. No problem. And sometimes we need to be told that, right, by an experienced entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the thing is as well, is it's always what you make of it. That's another thing I'm very good at. And I think I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but that's something that I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to see possibilities and see an opportunity where other people can't. And I make opportunities for myself. I don't allow them to come to me. I make them. And, you know, I could have easily gone in there and kind of sat and trundled along with my first business for another year. But I didn't. You know, I went to my mentor and said, look, what do you think about this? You know, and there is an element of, obviously she's going to de-risk it a little bit for me and kind of talk through the risks, but ultimately, you know, it's all down to you. And I definitely think it's what you make of it. You know, I really, really worked hard to make connections there and speak to other entrepreneurs and you know, figure out, you know, where they were on their journey, how they might be able to help me, how I might be able to help them. Yeah, it was a very, very positive experience. I'd highly recommend it. And I have recommended it to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think again for people listening, I mean, accelerators, you just got to know what that accelerator offers and make sure that it
Yeah,
matches and have aligned
absolutely.
expectations. Can we talk for a second about building a brand? Now, you built an incredible brand in 2 years, and I
Yes.
wondered what your thoughts were, people listening that want to build a brand. And
Yeah.
so you mentioned something just a moment ago about having to rebrand. So talk
Yes.
us a little bit through why you had to rebrand and a little bit about building a brand.
So with my first business, like just going back to that again. So I literally spent so much time on getting the branding right, on the aesthetic of the brand. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. With when I started Fiils, previously the Conscious Beauty Company, I literally was like, do you know what? It doesn't really matter if the branding is spot on, because people are going to buy the product or they're not. You know, spending an absolute fortune on, you know, an amazing, you know, a brand kind of experience, you know, is it really that important? I kind of went the opposite way to where I'd gone with my first brand. So as I've said, I actually designed the packaging myself, more or less. I mean, I had a designer to help me off Upwork. By the way, Upwork, if you're starting a business and these kind of platforms, Upwork, Fiverr, I highly recommend them. Really, really great to kind of source freelancers at great rates to help you build your idea. So anyway, I was working with a designer there. We put together this like super basic branding. I mean, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe anyone actually bought that. But they did. Like, you know, as I said, we started the brand like early 2020. And by like February, March, we were probably doing about 5-6 grand a month in sales, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering we were spending like £1,000 a month on marketing. So our return on, you know, our ROAS was absolutely amazing. And, you know, it was proof to me that people really did want to buy into this concept. I think, you know, COVID kind of highlighted the damage that we were doing to the planet. So everyone was like thinking about more sustainable solutions. But so, yeah, so the branding to me, I knew that it wasn't 100% proud of it, right? It was kind of going out to customers, and customers loved it. I mean, the feedback, we were getting like 5-star reviews. People loved the concept, they loved the bottles, etc. But I knew that if we wanted to really elevate the brand and stand out, that we needed to elevate. We needed to basically go to a branding agency and have a branding agency design this thing for us. So what I'm trying to say is, from the first brand, you know, I kind of shied away from actually bringing in a branding agency and getting the branding spot on for the Conscious Beauty Company. And actually, I wish that I had done that, because we started the process to rebranding in the June. And what I thought would literally be like a 3-month exercise, you know, I thought, right, we'll be done and dusted before the end of this year. It actually took a year to do the rebrand. But yeah, the rebrand, it was actually influenced by a trademark dispute. So it was a bit of a happy accident, really, because I knew that, like I said, I knew we needed to rebrand because the product, for instance, you know, if you're trying to market a product digitally and you're using something like Google Shopping, you know, your product really needs to stand out in a carousel of a million other brands, right? So I knew that in order to be more visible, we needed to do that. I knew if we wanted to get into retail, we needed something that was more eye-catching. And we had a dispute. We tried to register the Conscious Beauty Company as a trademark, and ended up getting a rejection. So we knew we needed to change the name anyway. So I was like, right, it's quite easy to come to the name Fiils, to be honest. I'll be honest, maybe it was a bit lazy. I was like, Fiils, refill.
It's actually a brilliant name, by the way. Fiils as well. That helps you trademark, because it's not a word that's in the dictionary. You kind of Google model, right? Create a word as opposed to try to use an existing word.
Yeah,
but just to say, for listeners listening, you just highlighted something that's really a big mistake that a lot of people make when building a business. They don't check if the name they've come up with is trademark registered already to someone else. And you can it's free. You can just go online and check.
Yeah.
And if it's registered to someone else and they're using it, the chances are that you will have a problem at some point in the business that could cause you major issues. And rebranding, as you say, is a year, but also you have to go and rechange all the in your case, probably even the bottles themselves, right, with all the markings. And so it's definitely something people should know up front to have a little think about. And we're not talking about necessarily brand creation. We're talking about name protection.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but yeah,
exactly.
it's a really good highlight you brought there. But so then, and by the way, also I agree with you. I think some of these we're actually sponsored by Taylor Brands, and so I just love these systems that allow you to design a brand at a reasonable cost and get you up and running. But the trademark thing is different. The trademark thing costs nothing to go and check, and yes, you can then use platforms like Taylor Brands to go then design your brand. But your branding design, which can take a year, as you said, but that's very different to actually owning the trademark. So it's a very important lesson there you've uncovered that I don't want people to miss.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I think check that the name's available for sure. I mean, we're trying to register it in other countries now as well. So we've had a rejection from China, which is, if you manufacture or make anything in China, then they do recommend that you actually register it there. So we're kind of going through that process now of seeing what we can do. But I mean, 100%, if you're starting a brand, definitely it is worth checking the name first.
And that is the problem with names, by the way. Everyone's already got a name. The thing is, I think definitely have the trademark in the market that you're taking income in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's actually the differential. I of course, you eventually, and your brand's blowing up and doing so well, you need to start thinking about international trademarking. But it's not about suing someone that's using your name. It's about protecting yourself from someone else suing you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, But I mean, China, it's interesting with the manufacturing angle, but China registers everything, right? That's just one of those markets that almost like cyber squatting.
Absolutely.
Equivalent.
Well, that's what they do, don't they? And then they basically demand, a ton of money for you to buy your bloody trademark back off them. So it's,
But that's part of doing business, I guess. But having the trademark in your market that you're taking income in
really
is
important.
Crucial.
Absolutely
Crucial. So at the end of the trademarking thing, so you get the trademark sorted out, and then you basically do a new brand. And do you think there was, in the branding process, there was any particular thing that you felt was crucial in the branding process that stands out, worth sharing with our audience?
What I would say, number one, is don't. So I did eventually succumb, and I was like I said, I've actually been super scrappy with this business. I've always used Upwork, Fiverr, all these websites to basically find designers to work with for reasonable rates. But then I knew for this whole branding exercise, we really needed to bring in an agency, and you will get quoted ridiculous amounts for a rebrand. I mean, I fell off my chair. I was like, 50 grand.
I used to own a branding agency, so I know. We used to charge £500,000 for some branding.
Really?
Projects. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well,
it's crazy.
Anyway, but for a startup, I mean, this is the problem. Obviously we're a startup. I knew what my budget was. What was really good at that time, to be honest, is because our sales went through the roof because of COVID, we needed to order more stock. So we ended up getting a government bounce back loan, which was amazing at the time because, we used part of that to do a rebrand. And I actually worked with the most incredible agency. They were just kind of starting out, their whole USP was kind of affordable rebranding for startups. And the whole process was amazing. We had around 3 or 4 concepts. I think when you're doing a rebrand, you really need to go with what you really like. I think as a founder as well, I think it's important to be really passionate and confident about the product that you're putting out into the market.
Especially if you're the demographic, by the way. I think that, in this case, you are the demographic that you're targeting. So that makes total sense, doesn't it, when it comes to branding? If it appeals to you and you are the target demographic, that makes total sense. I think sometimes people do create brands that they like that aren't necessarily good for the audience that they're targeting. So just getting those two aligned.
Well, that was what I was coming on to next, was that the most important thing was for us to really utilize a lot of the data that we'd collected from the Conscious Beauty company, this 6-month MVP period, to really kind of dive into who our ideal customer was and really base the rebrand around that. So, we use Google Analytics, Facebook at the time to figure out, where our customers shopped, their age, what cities they lived in, etc. And we kind of put this buyer persona together for that person. And that really did influence a lot of what we did.
I think that's another great insight for people. Your data-driven branding is basically what you're talking about there. Lead by what the data tells you, as opposed to what perhaps you think you know about your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I say that we should have done the branding, I guess, when we launched the brand, but actually it was probably a good thing we did it 6 months down the line, because we had all of this data, to really figure out, right, okay, who are we designing this for? So that was really interesting. I mean, I'll be honest, we are still refining the buyer persona now, because, I mean, when we eventually got round to launching Fiils, so much had changed within the market. So, right. There was more competition. Obviously we've had all these changes with Facebook, iOS, the whole kind of digital advertising landscape has completely changed. So I think your buyer persona, you do refine that a lot along the journey anyway.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think the other thing from the rebrand that I would say I really underestimated, even the concept of changing a name was really difficult, because we were actually getting, with the Conscious Beauty company, we were getting a load of really cheap traffic on Google. We were getting a ton of conversions off the actual Conscious Beauty keyword. When we switched to Fiils, not only are you trying to build up the SEO presence again for this new brand name, but also, we're bidding on, more highly competitive keywords. We've kind of lost that golden nugget. And we had to start everything all over again. We had to, redesign our website again. We had to really build up our SEO, as I've said, and the kind of online presence for Fiils. So it was a lot harder than I anticipated, to be honest.
It's another great insight, I think. I don't want people to miss this. I guess there's probably a hybrid between your first company and this second company, a middle ground where you launch, but you perhaps have at least the right name in place at the beginning.
Yeah,
and then you can build it up over time. But and I could talk to you forever. I absolutely love your story.
I know. Sorry, we're literally like super.
No. It's we promised people a 20-minute. A quick insight, and I could just keep talking to you forever, because I think you've got so much knowledge. We'll have to have you come back on and share more of your insights and your story. But just to close the podcast, maybe I could ask you one final question. I was really interested, if you went back and did it again, what would you do differently?
I mean, as I've said, I don't regret anything that I've done. It's kind of led me to this journey that I'm on now. It's a bit of a tough one, that. To be completely honest, I think I would have done it. Do you know what? I don't think I would have done anything differently. I mean, maybe that's...
No, I love that.
But I don't think I would have. No, I wouldn't have.
This is such another great insight you leave the audience with right at the end, which is sometimes the mistakes you've made have brought you to this brilliant place you are today. The bad luck is good luck.
It makes you tougher, and it builds resilience as well. And I think you really do need to make those mistakes like running a business, because it really, really does. I think the biggest thing I would say though is you've got to learn fast. You can't kind of sit on something for too long.
Again, that's why we're doing this podcast as well, because there are some mistakes you don't need to repeat. You just need to listen to an entrepreneur that's learned from that mistake to save you the time and trouble, like this branding conversation we're having now. It can actually save people a lot of pain, but you've already been through it, so they don't need to.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. Exactly.
No, but I hear you, and again, thank you on behalf of the planet for doing what you're doing.
Oh my gosh!
And as someone with a 4-year-old, I think businesses like yours are going to save the planet for my son. So I appreciate you and what you're doing.
Oh, that's so nice. You're gonna make me cry.
Well, it's how I feel.
Thank you.
I really am grateful that you've taken the time out to come and tell us your story and share your knowledge with our community. All of Anna's links to her businesses are down below. Perhaps go and say hello on her social media, or make a comment, or give a like. It doesn't cost anything, and just support the wonderful mission that Anna is on. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Pep Talk. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to follow the Purposeful Project on all our social media channels, where we're giving away even more free business secrets and entrepreneurial value. Again, we'd like to thank our sponsor GoDaddy for powering this podcast. From naming a business to buying a domain name to building your website for free, GoDaddy has you covered. For 40% off GoDaddy tools, click the link in the podcast note below and use the code GDXPepTalk. See you next time, entrepreneurs, and remember, you're not alone.